Okay, I have no idea where this study is going to lead us, but I had a question about where we are in time, when Satan is going to get cast down, because he has to be cast down first before the woman is persecuted and therefore flees into the wilderness. So we're not at the time of the persecution of the woman yet, because the man-child has to be born first. And I don't see any indications that that has happened, even though we did have the sign for that back in 2017. And here we are in 2023. So in September of this year, that will be 6 years since that sign was given. Maybe there's something symbolic about it being a 6-year period from the giving of the sign until the completion, because it took 6 days in the creation before man was created, right? And what we're looking for is to be born again in Christ, to be renewed and made whole again. I don't know, but I do find that interesting, that it will be 6 years this September. So let's just follow the story in Revelation chapter 12. That's where it gives us the sequencing for the birth of the man-child and then the casting down of Satan. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to be delivered. So hang on a second, something just popped out at me. So notice in the first sentence it says, now a great sign appeared in heaven. So first we have the sign. Then if you'll notice here, in this translation, it has the word then. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. Okay, so this is a conjunction. Then would mean that this was the next step. So first the sign and then. So I went to see if perhaps that was properly translated. And so I went to the interlineary for that verse. And the word here is kai, which is a very common conjunction in Greek. And coming down here to, well, it should tell me. Why is it not telling me? Hang on a second. Let me just pull that back up. Okay, so as you can see, it's been used over 9,000 times. But if you come down here, it tells you how many times it's translated in the different ways, right? And so 535 times it's translated as also. But in addition, where was that I just saw? Yeah, so it's translated as the word then 105 times. And as a matter of fact, further on in this same passage, it is also translated as then. Right here, then the woman fled into the wilderness. And it's very clear that for this is something that happens after she gives birth to the child. This is definitely the next step. So it would appear that the sign appears in heaven, then on earth, where this is actually being played out, the woman is crying out in labor and in pain to give birth. Now we go back to another sign that's given, okay? And that's the great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. Okay, so this is another sign. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. So this was the sign, okay? But then this is what is going to happen, Okay, she bore a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Then after the child is born and caught up to God and his throne and is given this rod of iron to rule the nations, then the woman flees into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Now, a lot of people are saying that we're a lot further along and that we're already in the Great Tribulation, but I don't see how that's even possible, because the place has not yet been prepared for the woman. She has not fled into the wilderness, and the child has not been born. This is not going to be unknown to those of us that are searching. This isn't going to be something that's hidden. It's going to be something that we're going to know has occurred. Because bare minimum, we're the woman. I mean, we're the ones that are searching and that are feeling the pressures of the time in which we find ourselves. We're the ones that are in pain and asking God to deliver us. So it's not going to be a mystery to us when this occurs. So what is this talking about? That the dragon was trying to devour the child as soon as it was born. Okay, and we're going to talk about this war that breaks out, because this is going through my head right now. So it says here further down, it's almost like this really isn't in order. It says, "Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, 'Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come.'" So this power is the rod of iron that's given to the man-child to rule. Okay? So this is going to happen when the man-child is caught up. It hasn't happened yet. Okay? And how is this achieved? It says, "Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren who accused them before our God day and night has been cast down." Okay? This is the casting down of Satan right here. This is when he's thrown out of heaven, right? So, and why is he thrown out? Because he's accusing us before Heavenly Father day and night, telling Heavenly Father that we are not worthy. Because, of course, our God is a God of justice. But you see, Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, he paid the price. He came down and he suffered in Gethsemane and on the cross, and he overcame death and hell. So let's just read about this redemption that Christ has already carried out for us, as he describes it in John 6. At this, the Jews began to grumble about Jesus because he had said, "I am the bread that came down from heaven." They were asking, "Is this not Yahushua, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How then can he say, 'I have come down from heaven'?" "Stop grumbling among yourselves," Jesus replied. "No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they will all be taught by God." I love that. "And all your children shall be taught by God, and great shall be the peace of thy children." That it would be so. Our children are in so much turmoil living in this crazy world. Deliver us, Father, I pray. "Everyone who has heard the Father and learned from him comes to me. Not that anyone has seen the Father except the one who is from God. Only he has seen the Father. Truly, truly, I tell you, he who believes has eternal life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, yet they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, so that anyone may eat of it and not die." Okay, not just Jews, not just the house of Israel, that anyone may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And this bread which I will give you, I will give for the life of the world, is my flesh. So he did that. And everyone that the Father draws to him, that's who he's going to raise up at the last day. So one of the things that Satan, one of the interesting things is that Yahushua HaMashiach is simply doing the will of the Father. And yet he is being opposed constantly by Hasatan. I mean, we have that in Zechariah. Then he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, that's Jesus Christ, and Satan standing at his right hand to oppose him, to oppose Joshua, because he's saying he's not worthy. He can't be redeemed. And Yahweh said to Satan, Yahweh rebuke you, Satan. Yahweh who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. So there is going to come this moment when Satan is going to be rebuked by the Father, by Yahweh, because what he is saying is not true, because Yahushua Mashiach has paid the price. He has the right to redeem us. But even so, Satan is going to continue opposing that. That's what he's trying to do by devouring. That's what it means that he's going to try to devour the man-child. He's going to try to keep the man-child from entering into the door that is open for him. I mean, we read that right here in Revelation chapter 3. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things says he who is holy, he who is true, he who has the key of David, he who opens and no one shuts. You see that? Satan cannot shut that door, and shuts and no one opens. I know your works. See, I have set before you what? An open door to his throne, to the throne of Jesus Christ, of Yahushua Mashiach. Okay, because these are going to be those who are going to serve in the temple of God. These are the new Levites, and no one can shut it. For you have a little strength, have kept my word, and have not denied my name. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Indeed, I will make them come and worship before your feet, and to know that I have loved you, because you have kept my command to persevere. I also will keep you from the hour of trial. See, these people are not going to go through the great tribulation. I mean, we see that also in Psalm 91, which shall come upon the whole world to test those who dwell on the earth. I believe that what we're going through is called the time of Jacob's trouble. It is the time for the cleansing of the drunkards of Ephraim. If I have a moment, we'll go back and we'll look at that. Behold, I am coming quickly. Hold fast what you have, that no one may take your crown. He who overcomes, I will make what? A pillar in the temple of my God. They are going to be the new Levites. Malachi 3, okay? They're going to be purged like gold and silver in his presence. And he shall go out no more. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem. See, it even tells us what the city's name is, the New Jerusalem. This is the New Jerusalem. They are the ones that are in the inheritors of the New Jerusalem. It's going to be written on them. They're the ones that inherit the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and I will write on him my new name. This is another thing that's interesting, where we get so twisted up. Now, I love using the name Yahusha, thinking that I'm at least getting close to what he would have been called by his own precious mother. I mean, I love when people call me by my name. My name is Patty, When I go and I buy groceries and things, I'd like to scope out the name tags and actually use people's names, because it makes them feel like like you care about them, like you care about taking a moment to know who they are. So I like to use the name Yahusha, but I'm not stuck on it. And I'm certainly not going to persecute anyone for using Jesus being the English way that we have come to learn to call upon him. Because I know that there is yet another name that is going to be given to the true believers to call him. And of course, he has many titles. And I also know what it says in Zephaniah. Zephaniah 3:9, for then I will restore to the peoples a pure language, that they all may call on the name of Yahweh to serve him with one accord. Okay, so all of the language, the pure language, is going to be restored to us, and we will call upon him in truth and righteousness. That's coming. It's just not quite here. And so we cannot persecute one another because of the names and the languages that we're using. It's going to be restored. Praise Yah, it's coming. For the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, right? Isn't that by eating the bread? Because Christ is the bread of life. That's what we just read. And by the word of their testimony. And they did not love their lives to the death. All right, the Spirit keeps bringing this back to me. So I guess I'm supposed to talk about this again. This group that did not love their lives to the death. Okay, first of all, the man-child, the firstborn, is Ephraim. That is clearly declared to us in the book of Jeremiah in chapter 31. And he says, and Ephraim, he talks about the restoration of the house of Israel. And he says, Ephraim is my firstborn son. Ephraim is born first. Now, Ephraim is not just Ephraim. Ephraim is the name that represents the northern kingdom. Okay, because they were the first to be kicked out, so they'll be the first to be brought back. Okay, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. So they are, and we also see that in the book of Zechariah. Okay, let's start here in Zechariah 10 and 6. I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph. I will bring them back because I have mercy on them. They shall be as though I had not cast them aside. For I am Yahweh their Elohim, and I will hear them. Those of Ephraim shall be like a mighty man, and their heart shall rejoice as if with wine. Yes, their children shall see it and be glad. What are they going to see? The restoration of the New Jerusalem. Their heart shall rejoice in Yahweh. I will whistle for them and gather them, for I will redeem them, and they shall increase as they once increased. Okay, first I have to explain who Judah is. Judah are the Christians. They're those that have entered into the waters of Judah. That is found in Isaiah 48. Let's start in verse 1. Listen to this, O house of Jacob, you who are called by the name of Israel, who have descended. It says descended from the line of Judah, but that's not what it says. So let's just go there and read the actual interlineary. It drives me crazy when things are not done properly. Hear this, house of Jacob, who are called by the name of Israel, and from the well springs, okay, from the waters, Maim waters, from the waters, not from the lineage of Judah, who have come forth, who swear by the name of Yahweh and of the God of Israel. The God of Israel is Jesus Christ. That's why both of these are mentioned, okay? So the name, by the name of Yahweh, the Father, and of the God of Israel, Jesus Christ. But they do not make mention in truth or in righteousness. It's very important that you understand that this Judah that it's talking about are exactly that. These are those who have entered into the waters of baptism. Because without understanding that, then you can't track the rest of the prophecies. So going back to Zechariah 12, Yahweh will save the tents of Judah first, the Christians, so that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem, this is Old Jerusalem, okay, house of David specifically, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, this is the piece of real estate that today is called Jerusalem, shall not become greater than that of Judah. Okay? Yahweh will save the tents of Judah first, because the first shall become last and the last shall become first. And one place where we can see all of that come together, I've read this so many times, guys, but I just think it's important in the moment of the study to get everything clear in our heads so we know who we're talking about. Isaiah 49, verse 5. And now Yahweh says, who formed me from the womb to be a servant. I believe this servant, I still am seeing this servant as the child that's born in Revelation 12. Ephraim the firstborn, so on and so forth. I'm still seeing it that way because that's the way this makes sense. And now Yahweh says, who formed me from the womb to be a servant, to bring Jacob back to him. Isn't that what we just saw in the previous chapter over here? Hear this, O house of Jacob, who are called by the name of Israel and have come from the well springs of Judah. Okay? Jacob, all right? So coming back down here, who formed me from the womb to be a servant, to bring Jacob back to him. Jacob, Judah, those, the Christians, so that Israel is gathered to him. Because I believe the Christians are the hunters. They're the ones that are going to go out to the four corners of the earth. This is what it's talked about here in Revelation chapter 12, when it says, now, when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle. Why is it 2 wings? I believe that those are the 2 sticks in Ezekiel 37 who have now come back together. This is the house of Judah and the house of Ephraim, okay, of Israel. The northern tribe and the southern tribes, they've come back together, okay? Anyway, but the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time. This is 3.5 years. This is when God's wrath is going to be poured out without measure. One thing that I'm wondering about is the judgments that are listed in the book of Revelation. I don't have this quite figured out yet, but we have the judgments that are listed in the book of Revelation. Could that be that those cover a 7-year period? And just like the plagues of Egypt, where the first certain number of plagues were actually suffered by both the Israelites and the Egyptians, but then there came this moment where the plagues were only suffered by the Egyptian and those that were in Goshen, and later for the worst plague, those that were in the house with the blood over their doorpost, they were preserved from those plagues. They didn't suffer them. So I'm wondering if this great tribulation is a 7-year period, and if the woman suffers the first 3.5 years worth, but then is saved from the great wrath, which is the last 3.5 years worth, which would follow the same pattern as what happened originally with Israel when they were in Egypt. I mean, I don't know. So I'm wondering if this is why she's nourished for 3.5 years, because that is the second half of that 7-year time period when she is being preserved from the wrath. So then when it became clear to the dragon that he couldn't get to the woman because she was taken to this place that was prepared, which I believe is what the firstborn child is preparing. Anyway, it says in verse 17, and the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ, of Yahushua Mashiach. So I believe that this is the Israel that is then going to be gathered, just like it says here, to bring Jacob back to him, the woman, so that Israel is gathered to him. So then I believe that the woman is going to become the mighty hunters, as it says in the book of Jeremiah. So Jeremiah 16:16, but for now I will send for many fishermen, declares Yahweh. And that's exactly what he told the disciples, to go and be fishers of men. This is the Christian era. Okay, this is the time of the sharing of the gospel that began with the disciples, that's going on still to this day. Okay, and they will catch them. After that, I will send for many hunters, and they will hunt them down on every mountain and hill, even from the clefts of the rocks. So bring Jacob back to him, okay? Get the Christians back in line, okay? So that they can then go and gather Israel from all of the great places where they've been dispersed and bring them back to safety. Okay, so I believe I'm supposed to come back here in my study because my mind just keeps coming back here. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. What does this mean? Did not love their lives to the death. So we first have to remember that the man-child, the firstborn son, is Ephraim, the northern kingdom. And Ephraim is more than just Ephraim. Ephraim is just the birthright tribe. So therefore, the northern kingdom takes on the name of Ephraim. Let me just show that to you. I keep going to the scriptures because I am very conscious of the great burden of not taking the Lord's name in vain. And I believe that that is largely talking about mixing the Word of God with the philosophies of men, speaking vanity and lies about our God. Now, I do not believe, however, He is going to hold against me the fact that there are still things that I don't fully understand. But I do believe that He expects us to use His word and to not put words in His mouth. Ezekiel 37, I'm in verse 19. I will take the stick. It's interesting, the word stick here, I looked it up just yesterday because I wanted to see what that really was. It's etz, which is a tree. It's not a stick. So it's been translated as stick. That happens a lot, right? So I will take the tree of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim. And that's probably why it's being translated as stick, because, you can't hold a tree in your hand, right? And yet that's what it says. So I will take the tree of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, right? Once again, because he's the leading tribe, and the tribes of Israel associated with him. And I will put them together with the tree of Judah. I will make them into a single tree, and they will become one in my hand, which is exactly what I was talking about. So those who have come out of the waters of Judah, okay, that's this entire group right here. Okay, these are the Christians. They've been gathered together through the waters of baptism already. Okay, so here we have in Isaiah 28, we have an entire chapter that's dedicated to specifically the drunkards of Ephraim. All right, and they are drunk with intoxicating drink. It's because of intoxicating drink, okay, that they stumble in judgment and err in vision, okay, because all the tables are full of vomit and filth. Tables are a play on words, tablets, all of the writings that they're reading are full of filth, right? So intoxicating drink, in my understanding, I'm just going to give you my understanding of the scriptures, is it is the words of God mixed with the philosophies of men. Okay, so they are reading the words of God, right? These are the Christians. They're reading the words of God, but they're being interpreted through people who have set themselves up as authorities in His Word, and they have mucked up the waters. As a matter of fact, that's described by the prophets. I'm in Ezekiel chapter 34. Son of man, I'm in verse 2. Prophesy against the shepherds of Israel, my servant Israel. Isaiah 49, who is to bring back Jacob so that Israel can be gathered. Prophesy and say to them, thus says Yahweh Elohim to the shepherds, woe to the shepherds of Israel who feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? Coming down to verse 17, behold, I shall judge between sheep and sheep, between rams and goats. Is it too little for you to have eaten up the good pasture, that you must tread down with your feet the residue of your pasture, and to have drunk the clear waters? So these people have drunk the waters, right? That you must foul the residue with your feet. And as for my flock, they eat what you have trampled with your feet, and they drink what you have fouled with your feet. So His word has been trampled and fouled and, turned into this filth that's then being consumed by the sheep. Then coming down to verse 14 of Isaiah 28, this is talking about the drunkards of Ephraim. Therefore hear the word of Yahweh, you scornful men who rule this people who are in Jerusalem. Because you have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with Sheol we are in agreement. When the overflowing scourge passes through, it will not come to us. For we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood we've hidden ourselves. Right? So this people have made a covenant, okay? So in other words, they are relying upon, okay? When we make a covenant with God, we rely on Him, right? To be our protector, to be our salvation. Okay, that's why it says, don't make flesh your arm. Your arm is your protector, all right? So they have made death and Sheol their protector, or at least with men who are representing Satan himself, death and Sheol, okay? Because they are trying to protect themselves from an overflowing scourge, an illness, a sickness that is expecting to come through their land. But He says your covenant with death will be annulled and your agreement with Sheol will not stand. So whatever they have done, loving their lives more than loving their God, depending upon even death and hell to save them, to save their physical lives, this measure that they've taken will not stand. It's not going to save them. It says, as often as it goes through, when the overflowing scourge passes through, then you will be trampled down by it. As often as it goes out, it will take you. For morning by morning it will pass over, and by day and by night it will be a terror, just to understand the report. By day and by night it will be a terror, just to understand the report. So at the time that this group is going to be called up to the throne of God, it seems that Satan is going to oppose that. The same way that he opposed bringing the Lord bringing the message to Daniel about the latter days. Do not fear, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words. Okay. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. And behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been left alone there with the kings of Persia. This same thing is about to be repeated, just like it says here. And war broke out in heaven. I'm back in Revelation 12. Michael, there he is again, standing up, and his angels fought with the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So this war in heaven could not yet have occurred, because the man-child's not yet been born. And all of these things are going to happen in that order. The man-child's going to be called up. Satan is going to stand and oppose, just like he does here in Zechariah 3. Then he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, Jesus Christ, and Satan standing at Joshua's right hand to oppose him. And Yahweh said to Satan, Yahweh rebuke you, Satan. Yahweh, who has chosen Jerusalem, rebuke you, Jerusalem. We just read that. Isaiah 28, the drunkards of Ephraim. Therefore hear the word of Yahweh, O scoffers, who rule this people in Jerusalem. Because this is where the new Jerusalem is going to be. For you said, we have made a covenant with death. We have fashioned an agreement with Sheol. We know this can't be talking about the old Jerusalem, because this is talking about Ephraim in the latter days. Ephraim's not in old Jerusalem in the latter days. And we know that from the book of Zechariah, who tells us in the end when they'll be restored, so that we know exactly who they are. They tell us in Zechariah that it is the house of David, right? The inhabitants of Jerusalem. This is where the new Jerusalem is going to be. This is Ephraim, the firstborn son, that this is talking about. So coming back over here to Zechariah, that ties once again Joshua the high priest as being a representative. Some people believe this is one individual person, but I'm still just not getting that concept. I'm not, from what I'm reading, and that's okay. Maybe I will at some point. And maybe this is one particular person who's within that group. Just a minute and I'll show you. Maybe it is, but we'll see. Then he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to oppose him. And Yahweh said to Satan, Yahweh rebuke you, Satan. Yahweh has chosen Jerusalem. Rebuke you. Okay, you leaders of Jerusalem. Okay, this is Ephraim. These are those that are redeemed out of Ephraim, though. Just as it says here in Isaiah 28, going back there, it talks about this remnant that will be saved out of this. On that day, Yahweh Sabaoth will be a crown of glory, a diadem of splendor to the remnant of his people. A spirit of justice to him who sits in judgment, and a strength to those who what? Who repel the onslaught at the gate. Coming further down in Zechariah 3, hear, O Joshua the high priest, you and your companions who sit before you, for they are a wondrous sign. So this is definitely a group. For behold, I am bringing forth my servant, the branch, my servant. I do believe this is who it's talking about here, where it says, and now Yahweh says, who formed me from the womb to be his servant. And he said to me, you are my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Why Israel? Israel is the northern kingdom. When the two kingdoms split up, the northern kingdom kept the name Israel. The leading tribe was Ephraim. These are all synonyms. So when it says Ephraim, when it says Israel, house of Jacob, these are all synonyms. Talking about the same group, to be distinguished from the Jews, right, who took the southern kingdom, the kingdom of Judea. Those are separate. Those are ways to separate these ideas out. If you will walk in my ways, and if you will keep my command, then you shall also judge my house, and likewise have charge of my courts. I will give you places to walk among those who stand here. Just like we just read in Revelation 12 about the child. What did it say? She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. Okay. Have charge of my courts, judge my house. So I think this is where we are. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men. So this is the first group that's going to be called up, being first fruits to God and to the Lamb. This is the 144,000. Okay, so we're looking for that man-child to be born. Being represented, Joshua the high priest is at least one of them, if he's not a representation of that group. This is where we are. And then after that comes the war in heaven, because Satan is going to stand there just like he does here in Zechariah 3, and he's going to oppose that group. And that's when Michael's going to stand up. And then he's going to get cast down. And then he's going to go after the woman. And we're just not quite there yet. But we are so close. Because here we are in Stellarium. And this is January 27th of 2024. Okay, so this is going to be this winter coming up. And notice Satan, which I believe Saturn represents Satan, is just entering the waters of Aquarius. Remember, he's the great dragon that's going to spew out the waters after the woman, so that because he's wrathful, because he's found that he's on the earth and wants to go after her. Okay, this is January of 2024 when that shows up. And then I just want to show you what's going to happen here. It's really interesting. So as he enters the waters, then look at this. You have the sun coming in and coming into conjunction with Saturn, but also Mercury, which I think stands for Michael, the archangel, right? He's going to stand up and the great war is going to happen, right? Well, actually, the great war is before this, because Satan is on the earth and then he's going to cast out the waters. But even so he's going to cast out the waters, but right, then the earth is going to open its mouth and help the woman. So I think this is a representation of that happening, of the woman being helped. Okay, they're coming to the rescue of the woman, and the woman, I believe, is being represented here by Venus. All right, who is coming along, comes through, but isn't stopped by the waters, right? And she's going to flee to her place of safety. And here's where I want to go. So I'm just going to keep moving because it's going to get real interesting at this point. So now we're going to follow the woman. Let me just give that the focus. So then watch what happens. So where are they going? Remember, the New Jerusalem, I believe, is being placed in the place that spiritually God is calling Egypt in the latter days. That is found in the book of Isaiah, chapter 19. It says that 5 cities will be established in the land of Egypt, right? And they will make a covenant and they will keep it. And that one of the cities will be the city of the sun. All right. So here we are with Jupiter. And Jupiter, remember, was the planet that was in the belly of the woman as the sign of the Revelation 12 sign, right, who was born. So Jupiter may very well represent that first group, right, the man-child, and Venus, the woman. So the man-child is here, right, and in the bull, which I think represents Egypt. All right, so this is the place that's prepared for the woman by the man-child, right, for her to flee into. And so now she has fled into her place of safety. See, she's right here. And as a matter of fact, what does she do? She goes into perfect conjunction with Jupiter in Taurus. I do believe that's her coming to Goshen, right? Because Ephraim is the birthright son of Joseph. So it's a replay of that whole story where Joseph went down into Egypt and prepared the place of safety, Goshen, which then the rest of Israel fled into. I just think it's a replay of the same story. And that sign is in May 23rd of 2024. And between that and Satan spewing out the waters, which happened back in January, between those two things occurring, we also have, I'm going to follow the sun now, we have the great eclipse that's going to happen here in the spring of 2024. Here, okay, and here is that great eclipse about to occur. See, this is April 8th. See, here's the moon, here's the sun, right? And this was, I think, representing the first group, the man-child, right? But now this great conjunction is happening, what? For the second group of the fish. This is the woman, right? Who's now going to be brought back. So just like it says, my servant Israel, he's called a servant Israel from the womb, so that Jacob, okay, the Christians can be brought back, so that Israel can be gathered. I really think this is the story that we're looking at, right? And boom, there's the great conjunction. So I think that by this fall, things are going to really start shaking up. And I think we're going to be surprised by how quickly these things begin to fall into place. But of course, you know, we can't set an actual date, right? Because that belongs to our Father in heaven. Our job is to be faithful. And here, I'm just going to read it to you. I always like to use his words instead of mine because I'm afraid I just get things all turned around. He says, let's see, where do I want to go? He says, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it, for you have a little strength, and have kept my word, and have not denied my name. Behold, I'm coming quickly. Hold fast what you have, that no one may take your crown. He who overcomes I will make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. I pray that we can all endure. We do have a little strength. Our strength is Jesus Christ. It's Yahushua HaMashiach. I pray that we will continue to trust in him and trust and wait on Yahweh and be faithful until all is completed.